Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you very much for joining today's Jakpost Up Close webinar on Bridging the Digital Gap, Unlocking Growth in Indonesia. I'm Norman, an editor at the Jakarta Post, and I will be the moderator for today's discussion. Some housekeeping rules before we begin. Our webinar will be in English with interpretation in Bahasa Indonesia. You can easily switch between the languages by activating the interpretation feature on your Zoom app. Here with us today are 5 distinguished speakers: Communications and Information Minister Johnny G. Plate, Schneider Electric Indonesia and Timor-Leste Cluster President Director Roberto Rossi, IBM Indonesia President Director Tan Wijaya, Asakreativita CEO Vivi Alatas, and Indosat Ooredoo Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer Arief Musta'in. Each speaker will have 15 minutes for their presentation, after which we will have a Q&A session for about 30 minutes. Audiences, please do drop any questions you may have in the Q&A box on your Zoom app at any time. We will select some questions to be discussed during the Q&A session, or the panelists can also directly answer your questions in the chat box. Please note that due to time constraints, we might not be able to answer all of your questions. A little background about our discussion today. This webinar, powered by Schneider Electric, is to celebrate the country's 76th Independence Day by bringing together government and industry leaders to reflect on how far the digital economy has progressed in the past few years and where it is taking the country going forward. Indonesia has the largest digital economy in Southeast Asia, valued at $44 billion last year, but expected to grow nearly threefold to $124 billion in 2025, according to a Google and Temasek report. This growth would not have been possible without the efforts of the public and private sector, including the ministry and companies here with us today, who are also among the leaders in their respective industries. These companies lay the foundational infrastructure for the digital economy, whether power grids, computers, software, or internet connectivity. However, gaps remain, as parts of the country, especially those outside Java, struggle with poor connectivity, limited electrification, and low productivity and skills among its human resources. Overcoming these problems are key to pushing development. So, without further ado, let us start this webinar with a keynote speech from the Minister. Pak Menteri, the floor is yours.
Thank you, host. Thank you, Norman. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan, salam sehat bagi kita sekalian. Yang pertama tentunya saya ditugasi Bapak Presiden menindaklanjuti surat dari Mas Taufikur Rahman, Chief Editor Jakarta Post. Dan untuk itu saya diminta memenuhi permohonan tersebut. Hari ini saya hadir, mudah-mudahan nanti pokok-pokok pikiran yang terkait dengan sektor Kominfo secara khusus bisa kita diskusikan bersama. Yang kedua, kita masih dalam bulan kemerdekaan, Dirgahayu Republik Indonesia. Selamat hari ulang tahun kemerdekaan ke-76 Republik Indonesia tahun 2021. Merdeka. Baik, management, editors, and senior journalists of the Jakarta Post, the management of the Schneider Electric Indonesia and Timor-Leste, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure for me to participate in this Jakarta Post Up Close, Archipelago Illuminated, bridging the digital gap, unlocking growth in Indonesia. On behalf of the President of the Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Joko Widodo, I would like to extend his congratulations on the successful convening of the event. I hope that this event will be a melting pot where brilliant minds and concrete solutions met, which leads to a more digitally connected Indonesia. The COVID-19 pandemic has sparked momentum to accelerate digitalization in many parts of the world, including Indonesia. As President Joko Widodo has mandated, Indonesia has taken steps to maximize its digital potential through digital transformation initiatives in 4 strategic pillars, such as 1. Digital infrastructure. 2. Digital government. 3. Digital economy. And 4. Digital society. The government of Indonesia, through the Ministry of Communications and Informatics, so-called MOCI, has established a roadmap of Indonesia Digital year 2021 to year 2024. Which comprises 100 main activities and initiatives on the 4 key pillars to be implemented by ministries, institutions, and local government across the country. Digital infrastructure development is at the core of the digital transformation effort. The government of Indonesia is currently aiming for better, faster, and more resilient internet coverage to further increase the internet link ratio and bridge the digital divide. Indonesia has already deployed more than 342,000 kilometers length of fiber optic backbone, inland and submarine. Indonesia has already deployed more than 342,000. If you take this and you may go around the world almost 9 times around the world. Combined with 9 satellites and microwave links networks to support the middle mile connectivity and nearly 560,000 base transceiver stations in the last mile throughout the archipelago. Yet, the digital divide remains. More than 12,500 of the 83,218 villages in the country struggles to have adequate connections, telecommunication connections. By 2022, the government of Indonesia aims to provide all these villages with 4G networks telecommunications 10 years faster than the initial plan. The work will be carried out by the Ministry of Communication and Informatics by way of deploying 4G infrastructure in remote areas, so-called 3Ts, terdepan, terluar, dan tertinggal. At the same time, the telecommunication operators provide the necessary infrastructure in uncovered areas in commercially viable regions. Indonesia is also in need of a high capacity and multifunctioning satellite. As such, the government of Indonesia will put into the orbit the high throughput Satria-1 satellite with its 150 gigabits per second transmission capacity. The satellite is expected to generate reliable connectivity in 93,900 schools, 3,700 health facilities, 3,700 health facilities, 3,900 security complexes, and 47,900 municipal offices across the country. Satria-1 satellite production and terrestrial gateways constructions are underway to meet the launch target of commercial operation in the 4th quarter of 2023. Indonesia is in need of at least 1 terabits per second satellite capacity until 2030. To meet this demand, a consistent policy is required. Indonesia is of the view that connectivity is a precondition for digital transformation to strengthen Indonesia's national economic capacities. Digital infrastructure provides downstream benefits for businesses and consumers, as it can help both actors become more productive and improve their access to the market. It is envisioned that by 2025, Indonesia shares a 40% of the ASEAN's digital economic equivalent to $124 billion report by Google and Temasek studies, including but not limited to e-commerce, financial technology, digital banking, etc. To realize such vision, the government of Indonesia has made efforts to fulfill the supply and demand in the new technology development. The Ministry of Communication and Informatics and the Ministry of Industry have outlined policies on local contents, specifically in 4G and 5G telecommunication components manufacturing to support the simultaneous operation of 4G and 5G telecommunication in Indonesia. The 4G connectivity is still the nation's network backbone. Indonesia just rolled out 5G commercial operation in 9 cities and many more to come. In moving toward a 4G and 5G deployment, the Ministry of Communication and Informatics is also farming and refarming frequency spectrum to meet the frequency spectrum demand of a total 2,047 megahertz by the end of 2024 to support the 4G and 5G operation. They prepare several programs to allow Indonesia to develop their digital capacity and go digital, consisting of A, the Ministry of Communication and Informatics Digital Literacy Movement of Cyberkreasi, which targets 12.5 million people each year, starting this year, aiming to have 50 million Indonesians to be digitally literate by 2024. B, the Digital Talent Scholarship, which gives training stimuli for 100,000 fresh graduates and professionals each year on digital technical skills, intermediate skills, such as programming, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, big data, virtual reality, Internet of Things, etc. It is predicted that in the next 15 years, Indonesia needs at least 9 million digital talent intermediate skills. So at least 600,000 per year. And we, the governments, the Ministry of Communications, will stimulate 400,000 fresh graduates and ask for the ecosystem to join us to meet the 600,000 demand digital talent every year. The Digital Leadership Academy facilitates Indonesia's policymakers to increase their knowledge on digital policy making in top colleagues, such as Tsinghua University, Harvard Kennedy Schools, National University of Singapore, and Oxford Internet Institute. And D, the Ministry of Communications and Informatics is also currently developing Institute Digital National University, IDNU, in 8 locations in Indonesia to become the center of formal edu convergence digital development. The transformation of the Ministry of Communication and Informatics Multimedia Training Center into full academic of 4 digital schools, digital technology and engineering schools, digital media and communication school, digital business and platform schools, and postgraduate program for digital policy and regulations. Indonesia realized that the digital disruptions its following challenges have increased the importance of maintaining the coexistence and managing an equal level of playing field in the media industry, especially between the mainstream media, conventional media, and the newcomer over-the-top businesses. In response to such a need, regulatory, Indonesia is seeking alternative contemporary policies to reinforce the nation's good journalism practices. At the moment, the government of Indonesia is benchmarking other countries' policies, which supports the development of its press industry, including the publisher's right. At the same time, the increasing digital activities due to the accelerations of digital transformation have intensified the need for a safe and productive digital space for all. It is important to note that ensuring a digital sphere free from information disorder, such as disinformation and hoaxes, as well as other illicit content on online sphere is the responsibility of all. The digital transformation process is also apparent in the nation's pandemic management, with the incorporations of digital-based solutions. The government is now focusing to tackle the challenges of the pandemic COVID-19, while simultaneously prepare a long-term roadmap to adapt a COVID-19 world. Underlying this is a vision to call an end to the globalized pandemic, start the epidemic, and hopefully soon endemic status. And hopefully also the world may live along with the COVID-19. We have to finish this big task. We have no way. It looks like that we have to live along with the COVID-19. The Ministry of Communications and Informatics is now migrating the various platforms, such as Peduli Lindungi, Primary Care, and Silacak, into the National Data Center, the Ministry of Communication and Informatics Cloud, to be an integrated COVID-19 response platform that helps tracing, tracking, fencing, vaccine management, as well as to support the daily activities of the people. Indonesia has recently seen the light at the end of the tunnel, as now many cities in various regions easing restrictions to level 3 and level 2. The government of Indonesia hopes that the situation will go even better to help economy recover. The National Statistics Bureau has reported a 7.07% year-on-year or 3.31% quarter-to-quarter economic growth in this second quarter of 2021. The Ministry of Finance further predicts that Indonesia may experience a 3.7 to 4.5% of the economic growth by the end of 2021 year-on-year. Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, achieving this ever-increasing growth is a collective effort that requires collaborations between stakeholders, including the government, businesses, media, academics, and most importantly, the people of Indonesia. It is our responsibility to create a productive digital space that is a space without disinformation, misinformation, and hoax. Today's event has given the reassurance that Indonesia will be a more connected, developed, and prosperous nation as it is destined to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Menteri, for that presentation that paints a picture of government policy in relation to digital Indonesia. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the minister cannot be with us until the end of the webinar. So before you leave, Pak, please do let us take a picture for documentation. I would like you and all the other speakers to please look at your camera and smile while I take a screenshot in 3, 2, 1. Great. Thank you very much, Pak Menteri. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm very sorry I have to leave. I have to join another session, another meeting, and hopefully this conference will come up with solutions and recommendations for policy making. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.
A quick note for the audience, in case you feel like you've missed something from today's discussion, know that this recording is available on our YouTube channel. Now, let us move to our first speaker. We'll talk about, reflect upon the state of the electric system in Indonesia and where it might or should go going forward. Roberto Rossi is President Director for Schneider Electric Indonesia and Timor-Leste Cluster. He was appointed earlier this year, having previously served as Vice President for the South America Power Systems Division at Schneider. An engineer by trade, Pak Roberto has been with Schneider since 2009. Pak Roberto, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you listen me?
Yes, Pak.
Can you see my screen properly?
Yes, Pak.
So, thank you for your invitation. Welcome everybody here, right? I am delighted to have the opportunity to talk with you all. As the introduction, I am Roberto Rossi, and I am the cluster president of Indonesia and Timor-Leste. And the idea today is to introduce you into electricity 4.0 and the expected contribution for Indonesia. As stated by the minister, COVID-19 has changed the course of our life, right? But also it reminds us the importance of take care ourselves and to take care also our country. And according to our point of view, the real crisis ahead is the pandemic. When the pandemic is over, will be the climate change, right? As you may know, back in 2015 in Paris, most of the country agreed that by the end of the century, we need to reach 1.5 degrees of temperature increase, or maximum 2 degrees. So far, we are not on track. So far, we already consume 1.1 Celsius degrees. And if we do nothing, we will reach 3.5 degrees Celsius increase, which will be a catastrophe. So we need to work together, and it's the core of electricity 4.0. We need to work together to reduce the carbon emission by 2025, right, to zero. On top of the current situation, we have challenges ahead, right? Because, today, almost 2 billion people, worldwide speaking, don't have access to reliable energy. And at the same time, half of the population is living in cities. And we expect the population growth by 2050 by 2.4 billion people. That means more production, more manufacturing, more food, more transportation, more of everything. But we have only one planet. That is why we need to put at the core the efficiency and the consumption, the smart consumption of our resources. And this is not only, as stated by the minister, something that is happening globally speaking. We also have a strong ambition in Indonesia. We want to be among the 10 largest world economies by 2030. And with that, we will try to support our, in 3 pillars, right? Sustainable energy for all, robust energy, and digital transformation. Along with them, we have also a carbon pledge in line with the Paris Agreement, which is in Indonesia, we expect to reduce our carbon footprint, and we expect to increase our clean energy. All in all, we have three focus areas. One is the electricity supply by increasing renewable, the transportation by increasing the electrical vehicles, and by forestry and land use to be sure that we control the deforestation as well as the uses of the land. So all in all, we think that we need to change the way in which we work around the energy itself, our relationship with energy. To fight the climate change, we need to reshape this way, since today is the 80% is responsible for the 80% of the production of the consumption of energy is related to the CO2 emissions. So all in all, for all kind of energy, either when you produce or when you consume, this is contributing to the 80% of the CO2 emissions worldwide speaking. So we think that the solution is a more electric and digital world, powered by software and technology. And that is what we call electricity 4.0. Electricity 4.0 is linked to our area, but to understand better the journey, we need to analyze the last 250 years, right? What happened with the evolution of our industry and the evolution of our electricity landscape. Back in at the rise of the technology, right? It was the stage one, I would say. It was defined by the mechanization of the steam and water power. And this was Industry 1.0. This is well known at this. And at the same momentum, the electricity world has their own first pioneers like Volta and Faraday. And this is considered also electricity 1.0. Later, when we approach the 20th century, we saw the mass production deployment in manufacturing, defining the Industry 2.0. And in parallel, there was a mass deployment of electrification, either through generation or lighting all across several countries, the major countries. Following in the 50s and the 60s, with the deployment of silicon, there was the perfect pillar to develop and to increase automatization and electronics. This was the Industry 3.0. And in parallel, this new silicon technology allowed us to deploy new electrical devices and new solution to generate, like the solar panels, giving birth to the clean generation, which is called electricity 3.0. Where are we today, right? Today we are in the age of everything is digital, software is everywhere, right? We are at the age of the smart manufacturing and industrial Internet of Things. And in parallel, what we are witnessing in the electrical world is a huge convergence in between electrical and digital at scale. On top of that, with software and technologies bringing new sources of efficiency and new way of produce the energy and consume the energy. And that is why we call electricity 4.0. Electricity 4.0 will power the future of our generation. We think that the future is more electric and more digital. And all in all, it will be more sustainable and resilient. The electric from one end, make energy green, since it's 2 to 5 times more efficient than other sources of energy. And on top of that, it can be produced in a cleaner way. And digital is the backbone, right? Because it makes visible the invisible, pushing us to new level of efficiency that we had never saw in the past. But you know, innovation today relies on, from one end, electricity, from another side, digital, but it's quite new. If you see the current situation, 80% of our energy is around fossil fuels, right? And on top of that, our network is still outdated and passive and disconnected. So in the future, through Electricity 4.0, we expect to build a more resilient backbone, starting by clean generation, going through a smart distribution and transmission, and ending on a smart usage of our energy, taking full conscience about what we are doing, how we are impacting the planet, and what we need to implement to achieve our goals. But you know, the good news is, despite of the overall environment, I started by explaining to you that we are not going in the right direction, and today still 80% of our energy is coming from fossil fuels. The technology already exists and is available, right? So today we can decentralize our generation to reduce technical losses. We can make a more digital network to secure continuity and to be right on time with the requirement of the demand. And we have a lot of solutions that today are electric, right? So all in all, this was the legacy, right? And this is the future. On top of that, it's important to highlight that it's not only the digitalization, but also the innovation at the core of the new product. The new product should be future ready. That means allow circular economy, avoid nocive gases like SF6 or other gases that are used on the market. We think that in the future, the best way to produce this type of solution is with no gas, only air. And to do that is really important to introduce a strong innovation that it will come for sure. But not only that, we need to secure the full cycle of the product, securing circular economy and securing not impact toward our planet. We at Schneider, we are working through Electricity 4.0 by trying to connect the dots all across the value chain. While we work in the demand for in building the homes of the future, the buildings of the future, the new scalable and sustainable data centers. When we talk about data center, this for Indonesia is a key topic to be deployed to secure the backbone of the digital transformation. So you will see the evolution and the construction of big data center, medium-sized data center, and data center at the edge, which are a small solution located in every manufacturing site to avoid latency. So all in all, a strong investment in this part, a strong consumption ahead that we need to offset by high efficiency since the CapEx phase and also for the operation phase. Also industries of the future and infrastructure of the future. Everything will be digitally and virtually monitor in the future. But it's not only this, right? It's also the supply. We are working to provide solution for sustainable and efficient generation, clean generation, and a lot of digital platform to secure the right transportation and distribution of the energy all across the city, because at the end, we are all today, in today's life, we are working from home. Our home is our place to learn, to enjoy, to work. So without electricity, no connectivity at all. So now is more than ever a basic right for everyone. Schneider, how we are supporting this? We are working the two parts of the equation. We are working by leading the example in our ecosystem, by a lot of action in our company with firm commitment in the next 40 years, but also by helping our customers to reduce their consumption, to be more efficient, and to achieve the net zero carbon emission as soon as possible. That is why we are today the #1 company worldwide speaking in terms of sustainability, recognized by the world. So, but it's not only the statement, right? We have several solutions that we can show to you all. Here, one solution for Enel, which is a power and grid company, in which we help them through software to make a predictive maintenance with a strong savings, anticipating faults. We have also a solution on Australia with our ADMS, Advanced Distribution Management System, to monitor 1 million points. That means the operator has full visibility about the network and can react very fast toward any kind of disruption on the network. We have solution for data center. In this case, we reach 100% power uptime through data center expert and constructor IT advisor, reaching the sustainability that Lintasarta was looking for on their premises. And also in Indonesia, Exim Bank, we secure the continuity of the operation and also operational efficiency through a constructor IT advisor and a constructor IT expert. So, but it's not only that, right? We have solution, but we also we are investing in new startup companies that want to help the planet. Is this the case of Surya in Indonesia? Is a startup dedicated to increase the solar panels in industrial and commercial buildings in rooftop implementation. We are helping them through Energy Asia investment to try to speed up their solution all across Indonesia. And we are also working with the government in the Center of Excellence. We already trained 240 teachers that is expected to train a student almost 11,000, and we work to upgrade 180 laboratories. Our factory in Batam is a national lighthouse where everyone can go to learn more about Industry 4.0, and we are increasing digital capabilities by giving a new curriculum training in the Digital Capability Center. So all in all, it took more than 70 years to electrify mature economies. But with the Electricity 4.0, we will achieve the zero carbon future very fast. But we all need to contribute, right? You can see here how the electrification will evolve, while through decentralization and digitization, we expect to untap a lot of efficiencies to bring a better future. So we think in Schneider Indonesia and in Schneider as a global company that we have a fantastic future, but it's impossible to do it alone. That is why we have more than 500,000 partners all across the world to working with us toward this ambition, which is to massively deploy electricity 4.0 to reach as soon as possible the zero waste and the zero carbon emission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Roberto, for that interesting presentation. That's the first time I've heard of this concept of electricity 4.0, which I see has some parallelism with industry 4.0. Pak Roberto, a quick question for you before moving on to our next speaker. From Schneider's perspective, what should Indonesia do to realize equitable energy access? And what is Schneider Indonesia's commitment or plans in achieving that?
Yes, thank you for the question. You know, all in all, I think that it is pretty clear that Indonesia need to increase the clean generation, to increase the digital backbone, to increase efficiency, and finally, to train the people, right? We need to have, you know, at the end, everything is done by people, right? So if we do not train the current generation and the future generation and the young, fresh graduate, I would say, there is no future. So all in all, cleaner generation, digitalization, reduction of our operational cost. That means efficiency, and to drive efficiency, we need to measure. So a lot of action to be put in place to measure our performance and to introduce improvement. What does it mean for Schneider Electric Indonesia from our end is that in the next years, we will have as a unique source of energy, electricity, and we will jump into 100% clean energy, and we will deploy massively the measurement of our performance and the full digitization of our operation, while we will keep working with the government, as I said, in training, not only our team, but also the communities, and contributing with the companies like Surya, as I stated, Indonesian companies that want to work with us toward the climate change. Finally, this is, I would say, the expectations toward our company and what is important for the country. But it's important to highlight also that we want to support the country as a partner for sustainability and efficiency, right? We can provide, we can work together to deploy microgrid solution, advanced distribution management solutions, distributed energy resources, and efficiency everywhere to rise and to help this new clean generation to make a better future with less wasted and less carbon footprint.
Great. Thank you very much, Pak Roberto. So while Pak Roberto has spoken about the electrification aspect of digital inclusion, our next speaker will talk about the software aspect, particularly about AI and cloud computing in relation to our theme for today, bridging the digital gap. Tan Wijaya is President Director at IBM Indonesia. He holds 2 bachelor degrees, one in computer sciences and one in nuclear physics, equally technically heavy subjects. He has worked at IBM Indonesia since 2007 and was appointed President Director in 2019 at a relatively young age of 38. Pak Tan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pak Norman. So first of all, thank you for Jakarta Force on this invitation on this seminar. And good morning to all distinguished speakers for today, especially Pak Menteri ICT, Pak Joni Pelate. It's very inspiring and well updated about the information. And then Mr. Roberto Rossi, President Schneider Electric for Indonesia and Timor Leste. And then Bu Vivi Alatas, CEO Asakreativita. And lastly is Pak Arief Musta'in, Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer of Indosat Ooredoo. And good morning to all participants in this webinar session. Let me project my screen. Okay, I hope the screen is up and you can see it. Okay, maybe first is about IBM, right? I think IBM, in certain extent, I think you have been experienced IBM since you are, wake up until you sleep at the night, right? So we have been supported a lot of banks. So 92 of top 100 worldwide banks is running in our mainframe. In fact, for Indonesia market itself is, I think, 19 of 20 top banks is also running in our IBM platform, right? So I think thanks for all the support. I think we also playing a very critical role in the travel, reservation, credit card, retail, and also the telecommunication, yeah? And Indonesia itself, we have been operate since 1937. And then we are just, I think, celebrate our 84 years in Indonesia. We are supporting around 170 countries. But besides that, we are running the business. We also very, engaged with the country to bring to the next level, right? So for example, I think last year we worked with the custom to do on how to have more efficient of the import and export. And then we also, during this COVID-19, working with the BNPB, really to build the application on how to really track all the medical devices across all the health facility across the nation. So these are some of contribution that we have, and then for during the COVID-19, I think we have some data point. The first one is we observe significant impact of the internet traffic, I think almost 20% compared to before COVID, right? And then quite a number of new market is also coming up, right? I call it as a millennial. So it's a senior citizen that behave as a millennial. So we see that in the past, they are a bit reluctant to join the digital. But because of this COVID, I think there's a lot of force for them to really embark on this digital transformation journey as well. So we see around 30 to 40% on this market really adapting and also use internet as well. And there's a 4 high area that has been used during this internet service. The first is education. It's increased a lot, right? I think we can't imagine at the moment, right? All the education now almost do is online, and internet has become the basic needs of education compared to before. The second one is, I think, also experience of the e-commerce, online shopping is also increased a lot. Also, the other part is entertainment and food and health, right? And I think in terms of the lifestyle also changed a lot. People is more focused on the basic needs, and they are start to know how to do stay at home and close to the family and go the field tour as well, right? And what we learned during this COVID-19, I think the first one, people is worried, right? This will come another peak. We experienced the second wave hit in the middle 2021, but the question is, we'll have another one, right? So people is curious about that. Second is about, because a lot of information has been flowed to the internet, I think trust become the problem as well, right? We experienced a lot of security attack during the COVID-19, especially on the online shopping and e-commerce part, right? And then I think it's also ideology. Either we save in terms of the health or we save for the economy. So I think the citizen has been divided with this ideology as well, right? And in terms of the technology, I think we see the market has been, there's a lot of disruption and consists of these 3 criteria. I think consumer have a different in terms of the shaping, in terms of the demand in the industry. They want to go to online, for example. The second one is there's new coming up, a new innovation, new business model to be applied in this market as well. Lastly, about the technology that make it possible in terms of the innovation and also customer experience as well. Okay, regards to that, I think there's a few criteria that we are looking for in terms of the digital transformation. I think the first one definitely is about the artificial intelligence, about the data and AI, right? The second one is talking about that how we secure the data after we've been flowing the data from one to the other. Lastly, is about the infrastructure to support that, right? So these are three criteria area that we are looking for that increase a lot, yeah? Data, AI, security, and then cloud. On the AI, during this pandemic, we see quite a number of new use cases has been adopted. I will mention a few of them, right? From automotive, consumer goods, finance, and many others, right? So one is about the manufacture. I think government has been imposed for the industry 4.0, and we see that quite a number of manufacturers, because of this PPKM, they also realized that they need to have a more robust system to really support their manufacturer. And one of the area is about the visual inspection on how to have a quality assurance, right? So many of the manufacturers in Indonesia especially has been started to do because of visual inspection AI. So what they do is once the final product has been come out, they use just a normal CCTV to record, and then they can really use the AI to identify either those product, the final product, have a defects or not, right? So this has been commonly in use at the moment due to this COVID. And then the second one, because of the basic needs that I mentioned earlier, a lot of number of CPG manufacturers really need to have more accurate in terms of the forecasting demand and supply. And it's not only the traditional retailer channel, but also in online channel. So this has been adopted together with the AI chat room as well, has been adopted as well, because there's a quite number of demand from customer is asking that can they have some support, not only as face-to-face, but as a virtually support. This also has been available. The other part is also talking about the telemedicine, and more, if we do the medical record, there's more advanced technology that make it possible for the doctor to have identified on the medical record using the AI to identify is there any anomaly or is there any suppression on certain illness. So this has been also been enhanced during this COVID-19. Yeah. Okay, this is a few area and a sample that use case has been adopted during this COVID-19. To support on this data and AI, as mentioned earlier, is a lot of required on top of the infrastructure. And there's a quite number of discussion, either they use the traditional IT, private cloud, or public cloud, right? So it's a lot of movement now. Really, the customers start to realize that they need to combine all of them. So this been called as a hybrid cloud. They can't just live in public or in the private. They need to adopt both of them. So the hybrid cloud is playing a very critical role on this journey as well, right? And then as we are talking about the cloud, it's not only about the infrastructure or the location they need to put the data, but it's talking about the journey, where the data can be transformed. So now it's a lot of discussion about more agile in terms of the application. So there's a quite number of customers has been moving and migrate to be a container-based microservices application that make it possible for them to move from one cloud to the other cloud as well. Okay, if we combine both of them in terms of the data and AI, and also the hybrid cloud technology with these two, make it possible for every customer now have a two area. From outside in, really understanding what is a customer or market demands, is also combined with the inside out, what kind of innovation they can do together to address this kind of market. So I think with these two big technology, data AI, hybrid cloud, together with the security in place, then this make it possible for every client now to really build the competitive advantage and leading the competition. Okay, I think this as a glance about the data AI and also cloud. I think back to you, Pak Norman. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Pak. That was a very insightful presentation. The number that stood out for me was that internet traffic went up 15 to 20% during the pandemic. This is something that we've generally known about, but it's always nice to have a quantitative figure of that increase. Also, the word that stood out for me was selenial. Again, I've not heard of this word, but that could be an interesting driving force in developing the market in Indonesia. Now, we move on from the computer and software side, we go to the human resources side with Vivi Alatas, economist by trade. Bu Vivi was formerly the lead economist for the World Bank's poverty program in Indonesia, and she is currently CEO of Asakreativita. She's again going to talk about the human resources aspect of digital inclusion. Ibu Vivi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Norman. Good morning, everyone. Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera untuk semua. Digital technology is transforming the world. Ocean of big data, Internet of Things, and robotics are no longer just part of science fiction. The world is changing and create anxiety and hope. Should we worry? Can we expect much to gain? Can Indonesia take advantage of the existing momentum? And who will benefit from the digital dividend? Will the large number of young new entrants to labor market in the coming years get jobs? Will technology widen the gap between the rich and the poor? At the same time, there is a hope when we learn from other countries' experiences. Taobo villages in China are blessed with the rise of e-commerce. Bangladesh is benefiting from online job opportunities and freelancing, with around 17% of the world's online workers come from Bangladesh. Can we bring similar blessing to our villages across the archipelago? Which is more likely to happen, our hope or our worries? Technological disruption is not just a new thing that happened only in our time. The anxiety and the excitement that accompanies it are not new either. Even more than 2,000 years ago, the disruption of technology in writing instruments created fear for Socrates. He argued that writing could destroy memory. It did not happen. Queen Elizabeth I was worried after the Industrial Revolution. She argued sewing machine could make workers become beggars. It did not occur. The father of economics, John Keynes, had a utopian prediction. At the end of the 20th century, we would work only 15 hours per week. I wish it did not happen. Those worries and predictions did not happen because we humans can adapt. So where should we place our expectations? Digital transformation creates potential, but also gives challenges. Currently, there are many challenges that we face in our labor market. Less than 20% of Indonesia population has more than high school education, with the dropouts happening during the transition period. This dropout reached 30% during the transition from SD to SMP. Girls are more likely to drop out than boys. In addition, tertiary education attainment is still low among youth, for females and males, mainly consisting of people from the upper 20%. One of the main challenges is addressing youth idleness, specifically female idleness, which is up to 38%. Youth idleness is defined as 16 to 25 years individuals who are not in school, not having a job, not looking or preparing for a job, not getting training, idle. And youth unemployment is highest for those with tertiary education. Another challenge is low labor force participation for women. Indonesia women labor force participation is only around 50%, and this statistic has been stagnant for decades. We are facing a race between skill and technology, but unfortunately, we might lose the race unless there is a significant awakening about the importance of upskilling and reskilling. Sakernas 2019 data showed that the low-educated youth do not have the interest or capability to attend training programs. Only about 1 to 3% for those with primary or junior secondary education took training. The majority of youth who participated in training came from high-educated groups. Education and skill matters. The higher the educational attainment, the higher the probability of having a formal job, which usually comes with more protection, social insurance, paid leave, and other benefits. Digital technology gives promises to address some of these issues that I mentioned, but not without additional challenges. Digital technology offers improvement through two main mechanisms. First, the inclusion mechanisms provides more opportunities for business and individuals to participate in the digital market, for seller and buyers to meet in cyberspace, both for goods and services, domestic and international. It can reduce boundary barriers between countries with platforms such as Amazon, E-Lanes, DB, JobDB, Bukalapak, Gojek, and many others. However, there are still many challenges if we want to ensure that it lifts all the boats and gives opportunities also for the lower classes. There are information constraints, do not know the platform access, do not know how to access the platforms, or do not have the confidence and the means to participate. Most of the platforms still have urban biases and education biases. Second mechanism is increasing efficiency through better use of capital for businesses and better productivity for workers. FNCC mechanism also provide opportunities for skills and management improvement. You can learn almost anything now. The challenge is creating user-friendly skill platform with local content needed by poor families and poor villages. Another challenge is being bewildered about what to learn. We can easily get lost in the ocean of information that internet can offer. But I think the most critical challenge is fostering grit to participate in learning. Millions join massive online courses, but only a small percentage are determined to keep learning and not give up until the end. Digital indeed promise hope, but we need to overcome many challenges so that it will not create winner-take-all phenomena. What skills are required to embrace digital transformation and Industry 4.0? How will the education of the future look like? The central certainty is the uncertainty. The world is changing and will continue to change. The ability to adapt to these continuous and sometimes unpredictable changes is the most important trait one can have. The digital revolution is a data revolution, but the quality of data is limited to the quality of data users. Indonesia needs more people with the capacity, experience, and patience for carrying out data analysis competently. Not only Indonesia, but the world also needs more mathematicians, data scientists, statisticians, econometricians who make data tell stories and offer accurate solutions. But the goal in the future is not to make everyone becoming a data scientist. We need end-to-end skills, not only super advanced skills such as deep learning, but more importantly, digital literacy and critical thinking. Digital literacy is the ability to live, learn, and work in a society where interaction and communication use digital technology. Most importantly, it is the ability to know how to sort and distinguish information through critical thinking by having the skill to recognize twisted logic, the so-called fallacies, so that one will not be prone to believe hoax and fake news, by having problem-solving capabilities that help seeing the root of the problem, analyzing possible solutions so as not to make decision or conclusion rashly without evidence. How can Indonesia ensure that it is having the capability and skills to embrace the digital transformation? Education and educational institutions need to change in all dimensions, whether related to what, who, where, when, and how education is carried out. Technological disruption requires every student, regardless of their interests and abilities, to have the foundational skills needed to navigate the changing times. Workers will have not only one career in their lifetime. These foundational skills include problem solving, critical thinking, and excellent communication skills. Workers will need socio-behavioral skills in all occupations, such as teamwork, self-confidence, negotiation skill, anger management, and self-expression. Future education and schools are no longer generalizing the needs of every child with a one-size-fits-all approach. Future education will tend to be more personalized training, adaptive to the needs and interests of each individual. The transformation of school and university curriculum can allow each individual to cultivate his unique strengths, interests, and talents. The goal of each student is no longer fixated to the study to the test competition to get a seat to enter state universities. Instead of focusing on studying to the test, it is more about using testing to provide continuous feedback and adaptive personalized learning. Currently, students have little autonomy to have a say in the formulation of available curricula. Education in the future should be more about providing various micro-learnings that function like badges so that students can formulate the skill set that best suit them more precisely. And several countries have taken steps in this kind of future education. New Zealand has started a trial of micro-credential system for skill improvement using blockchain technology. But where the education takes place, no longer dominated by offline, but more anytime, anywhere with possibility of blended mechanism. Online learning previously was an underdog, but COVID gave it a more prominent place. Even after the pandemic, online learning is expected to overgrow. Online learning erodes regional boundaries so that access to quality education does not depend on where we live. Opportunity for students from low-income families will also increase because the costs are cheaper. It is no longer dependent on the fierce competition in getting accepted to state universities when people are able to mix and have access to precisely the type of degree they need, regardless of their geographic location. About when education and upscaling happen. It is no longer predominantly during the first 25 years of your life, because continuous learning throughout the lifetime using short, tailored training courses and learning by doing. Workers and employers will increasingly realize that there is no other choice but to continue upscaling and rescaling. About how the future education will incorporate gamification, hands-on, immersion, and simulation. Technology has the potential to deliver the promise of giving no chance to get bored. Of course, the role of teachers, lecturers remain critical, but more as facilitator, coach, advisor, instead of the primary source of knowledge. How can Indonesia reach this kind of digital transformation faster? There are 4 challenges that Indonesia needs to prioritize to accelerate the process in achieving the promise of future education and digital transformation. The fundamental challenge for Indonesia is the connectivity gap, gaps between countries and disparities between regions. Our internet speed, unfortunately, our internet speed level is ranked number 110. I just checked today in the world. There are disparities between regions, especially broadband networks with high speed, which are still very unequal. And I believe Pak Arief will talk more about this challenge. The second challenge is to continue reforming education, which the government has started with Merdeka Belajar initiative. But we need reform that focuses on preparing independent learners who are ready to recognize their uniqueness so that they can start and choose the right skills to become the best version of themselves. Of course, it is not easy to immediately move from a traditional approach nowadays to a personalized training approach, adaptive, practical, project-based, that also provide foundation skills and socio-emotional skills. The third challenge is to continue to reform universities. Universities have the potential as incubators of innovation. The success of Silicon Valley, Bangalore, is inseparable from the role of the surrounding universities. Africa even now has more than 300 tech hubs spread across 93 cities in 42 countries. The challenge is to ensure that each university in Indonesia is willing and able to transform itself to respond to changing times quickly. The complicated bureaucracy needs to be trimmed so that our universities are not left far behind and not still fixated on offering the curriculum and syllabus of yesteryears. The fourth challenge is inducing the private sectors to become learning organizations. To compete in the world, companies need to improve the skills and productivities of their workers continuously. and this is still a big obstacle. Skill upgrading has not been the main focus of companies or workers themselves, with less than 10% of companies in Indonesia providing training. Addressing all these challenges will require comprehensive approaches, focusing not only on improving tertiary education, but also nurturing early childhood. Not only formal education, but also non-formal education. Not only on young people, but also on providing chances for anyone who want to improve their skill. Addressing all these challenges is not easy, but it is not an unattainable utopia either. I believe together we can. Indonesia bisa. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Vivi. That was again another interesting presentation that had a more human touch to it. You made some important remarks about the urban bias and the education bias in current technology, which is again a very human touch. And with that, that brings us to our final speaker for today. That is Pak Arief Musta'in, Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer at Indosat Ooredoo, who will cover the telecommunications aspect of the digital gap, particularly in relation to 5G, which the company only recently launched. An engineer by trade, Pak Arief has a long career in telecommunications. He joined Indosat in 2018 and was appointed for the current position in May last year. Pak Arief, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mas Norman. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi and salam sejahtera. So let me set the context. Please, I didn't see my slide, Mas Norman. Is there any problem for the my slide?
We're looking to that. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, it seems that we are having a technical issue with the slides. Sorry, Pak Arief, we're going to get to that. There you go, Pak. Bisa.
Okay. So we need a slide, so actually. Hello?
Hello, Pak?
Okay.
Yes.
That's good. So next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. Let me alone to set the context of our discussion today, because I want to share about the digital infrastructure that also Vivi already mentioned about how important the situation right now for the connectivity in Indonesia. However, let's see the context. There are some 4 pillars that we are also addressing in our discussion today. Vivi already mentioned very good and very insightful regarding the digital talent, for example, and also for Menteri already mentioned about the policy, regulation, investment. But what actually we want to do along this way? This is about the digital value creation. So that's why the digital value creation is talking about the digital ecosystem, mainly for the strategic sectors, because this is looking forward for the how actually the public services, demand and supply, the interconnection, and etc. that provide the more favorable developers. And the next is about the national data services. And also the most important thing that we also mentioned today is about digital economy. And last but not least is also digital social impact, because the digital social impact is also a part of this transformation, how actually we want to be. Just for example, the digital social impact right now, like Vivi mentioned about the empowerment, and there is the inequality about the education. So that's why Indosat also thinking about how actually we develop the digital social impact as well. We have a program for the CHAC and etc. But come back to the topics. I want to share more detail about the digital infrastructure itself, because this is also a lot of challenging about the broadband itself, the connectivity that right now provided by a player in the telecommunication sectors. And also, I think already mentioning by Pak Tan regarding the cloud, IoT, and AI. Pak Roberto also mentioned about the IoT. So then the next slide, please. So let's see about the situation right now in Indonesia. We are talking about the 3 pillars in the broadband infrastructure. First, it is about the availability. And the second one is about the accessibility. And the last one is about the affordability. So this is the 3 pillars, the 3 factors that all are very big impacted on the broadband infrastructure in the telecommunication sectors. If we see right now the condition in the urban market, for example, this is nothing problem at all, because the operators maybe not 3, but all the operator, all the provider are already seated in this urban, in these big cities. But if we are going to further in the suburban, in the rural, maybe there is only one operator. And already mentioned by Pak Menteri that in the 12.5 thousands, there is in rural market, there is no operator at all right now. So this is the challenges. However, in the other side, education, health sectors right now need this connectivity, no matter the location right now in Indonesia, because even in a very rural area, when we are talking about the online learning, the e-health, everything is talking about the connectivity. So that's why this is the challenge that we are still facing today. However, even the situation right now, actually, we are going fast in the telecommunication sectors. So we can see here the unique mobile subscriber, almost 200 million subscribers right now. The connectivity technology also adopted very fast. 4G and 5G even we already implement. Indosat and Telkomsel's already operationalized about the 5G. And also the adoption of smartphone. We can see in the age segment in Indonesia, everyone using the smartphone. This is the indicator that adoption is very high, and also the mobile internet user as well. Even in the COVID area right now, Indosat Ooredoo also built more than 7,000 4G sites throughout Indonesia, with this very limited condition. It's very challenging, but we are see there is a call that we have to implement, and also to roll out the BTS 5G as well, 5G and 4G for the BTS. Next slide, please. So this is a part that actually Indosat also thinking about that, the thing that Vivi already mentioned. So we cannot see this is a cities or urban or rural area, remote area. Indosat also wants to have the broader connectivities around these countries. So that's why you can see here how actually we can reach out the outermost, the isolated area. Even Pak Roberto, there is no electricity. So we are right now still using the solar panel, for example. And you can see in the photo, but the mission is accomplished. We have to deliver the connectivity to the people that need the education, that need the help to see the medicine, for example, and also deliver the courses, something like this one. So this is another thing that we think how actually the role of the operators to deliver the connectivity with even a very limited, you can imagine in the villages, we just have the maximum around 4 or 8 megabit per second. So this is the situation that this is, yes, of course, there is an equality between the cities and also the villages, for example. But this is the part that actually the telco industry moving forward to reach out in every corner around in Indonesia. So next slide, please. So this is another thing that right now with the Minister of Communication and Informatics and also the Bhakti, Indosat also have a plan, some area in the outermost in a very rural area to develop the infrastructure actually with some limitation that maybe this is only happen in this location. Next. This is the thing that Indosat the last year until right now already rolled out until the Q2 this year's. You can see about our spread out the new BTS because we know the situation right now is depend on this connectivity. Everything is going online, so that's why the coverage, the new BTS has been rolled out so far by Indosat. Next. So if we see in the big three in Indonesia telco operators, even the Indosat, Telkomsel, XL also have a tremendous BTS rollout. It's mean we possible to reach out the broader situation and location that maybe so far is very difficult to get the connectivity. So here I just want to show the situation is the COVID and pandemic. It's not mean there is no limitation for us to moving forward to deliver the connectivity to all the people of Indonesia. Next. Next slide, please. So if we see here, actually for cellular industry itself, during the pandemic, for the cellular business, because the transaction and also most activities shifting to the online, in terms of business, actually the growing is very good. Even we have also the double digit for the payload of these activities in the internet. So even for the quarter by quarter, more than 40% of the traffics going higher. So we can imagine the activities and transaction actually already moved to online. And of course, for the roaming business, drastically decreased, and also for the corporate customer, because everything is bring to the home. So there is no activity anymore in the corporate and the enterprises. So we also see this declining trend. And the other hand is also the massive data traffic, more than 40% quarter by quarters growing for the in housings activities, because everything is just going working activities, learning activities in the home. And right now we also challenged for the moving forward. So for the term of the profitability, there is a decline for the average revenue per gigabyte. And also we can see here there is a geographical challenge. I think this is our challenge. The main issue is about the fiber and also the power availability that Roberto already mentioned here, and also the satellite, because all location in Indonesia cannot reach out by the fiber. So that's why there is also we need this satellite backbone to have a connect in our BTS. Another thing is also the OTT, and the last one, but also very important, is a regulation model, because you know, in the future there is disaggregation of value chain, the telco industry, and also the 5G landscape. Next. So I think this is the very important thing if we are talking about the 5G infrastructure. So in the 5G infrastructure, this is not only we are talking the speed, but surrounding the ecosystem of 5G is very important. We are talking about affordable spectrum, and also for how actually to facilitate the access until the site location. And also for the deployment on small cell, the backhaul, and also the policy and the regulatory regarding the network sharing, for example, and also the power, because the density of power is quite different between 4G and 5G. And also how actually this is quite very important is about the business model itself, because there is a need to provide financial support not only for the infrastructure, but also the ecosystem in 5G that we have to provide. So the last one is also about the regulatory flexibility, especially for the B2B, because we have a strong belief starting 5G actually mostly talking about the enterprise part, not the consumer part. So next one, please. So what is about the digital infrastructure alternative if we still have the challenge? So that's why right now this is actually non-mainstream technology, but we have a belief in the future high altitude platform services, satellite, that they are using the 5G element in their platform. Actually, this is a part that we can rely in the future technology about the 5G itself, not only in the terrestrial, but we are bringing the BTS on the sky. So that's why right now some global player preparing the new technology about the HABs, the satellite that directly broadcasting the signal 5G from the sky. So this is another thing that I do believe this is very important if we want to see the technology roadmap in the future. So just for example, if we are using the new technology, the coverage of Indonesia is very easy, because some platform just have the potential to cover around 200 kilometers in one BTS, for example. So this is another thing that will change the industrial landscape in Indonesia. So that's all from my end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Arief, for that interesting presentation. I found it particularly interesting to see Indosat's strategy to expand its connectivity throughout Indonesia, especially to the more remote regions, which we know can be very challenging. You mentioned deploying not only terrestrial BTS, but also, I like this quote, BTS in the sky.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pak. And ladies and gentlemen, that about wraps it up for all the presentations. We still have an hour left for discussion. We have several questions lined up in the chat section. So now we'll enter the Q&A session, starting with Pak Roberto. We have a question from Nico Safavi of PT Mowilex. He mentioned, Pak Nico here mentioned some challenges to renewable energy development in Indonesia, such as inability to sell back excess power from microgrids, the high tariffs on renewable components, and the lack of access to renewable energy finance. On that note, what are your thoughts on how to reduce the influence of the existing carbon-based power generating utilities so that renewables can compete?
Yes, thank you for the question. Right. You know, the current situation is based on the last 60 years, right? So for sure, we are not where we should be. But in parallel, it's pretty visible that, for instance, renewables has grown twice faster than expected in the last 2 to 3 years. So now, globally speaking, we are reaching the 6% of the generation, and we will reach in 20 years almost 40%, right? All in all, globally speaking. So yes, the current situation is not good, but more and more, the technologies are becoming cheaper and cheaper. The solutions are, I would say, better adapted toward the needs, reducing also the capex. And in the equation, it's important to include the OPEX, right? Sometimes some changes will require to put inside of the equation, not only the capex, but also the OPEX. Some changes will be a payback in 2 to 3 years. And there is important the investment, and there is important the access to the money, right? And in this regard, it is clear the statement that in the past, it was very easy to receive funding to make a coal plant, but it's not anymore, right? Today, more and more global investors and the big players like Soros and others are looking for sustainable companies. Now the money is shifting from the old way of generation based on fossil fuels into the clean energy, as well as Schneider is doing, right? Schneider is also part of this new generation of investors, and you will see more and more and more. So all in all, we need to set up first in every single company our own goals. Without goals, there is nothing to be done, right? So first is to say, okay, what company we want to have? What is our commitment toward the carbon pledge? When we want to become carbon neutral, and when we want to become zero net carbon. And based on that, there are plenty of companies like Schneider that can help you in digitization and to build a plan to make it happen by including not only technologies, but also other way of working and a full digitization. As I said, it is not easy. It will be a collective effort. Everyone must contribute. The private companies, the government, as stated, and the government is there, the telecom companies, the education part, it will be a collective effort to reach where we want to be in 10 years.
Great. Thank you, Pak Roberto. And there's a second question for you as well from Amelia Rosita. A two-part question. First of all, are there any side implications or side effects of using high-tech electricity technology? And second, how will this high-tech electricity technology be effective in Indonesia, considering that such technology is still quite expensive?
When you ask side effect, I assume that you are asking for the negative one. We don't have any negative one, only positive one, right? So to be out of fossil fuels is the best way to move forward for the planet, right? So the new technologies will incorporate challenges, as stated by Vivi, in terms of education and access to the meaningful information, not only access to the information. So we need to prepare our people, right? So what are the implications of the new technologies is that it needed a collective effort to make it happen, mainly based on education. That is why Schneider is working in several streams internally and externally with the government to make it happen, because at the end, without partners, this will never happen. In the sense of how Indonesia can apply the technology, I already gave to you several examples, and we have plenty of examples, that situation that are happening now, right? It's not like futurism. This is happening now. More and more and more, we are finding the way to make it happen, despite of the cost of the capex. We have a strong operational cost today, and even though sometimes one digital reality tool or virtual reality tool is more expensive than the normal application, when you compare this with the operational cost, and today with the impossibility to be on the ground due to COVID, it is mandatory, right? And you untap new opportunities, and more we use these technologies, more and more it reduces the cost. So you will see more affordable technology in the future, like solar, microgrid. You will see more and more the government will start with smart metering, allowing every single customer not only to buy energy, but also to sell the energy that they are not using and they are producing. It will take time, but it will be really fast.
Okay, thank you, Pa. Maybe I want to emphasize more on the second question, if I'm understanding Amelia's question correct. And Amelia, if you're listening to this, please do type in the chat if I'm misunderstanding the question. I think the emphasis is more on the cost aspect. Building these, as you mentioned, requires CAPEX and OPEX. What are perhaps IBM's offers, or perhaps there's any policies in the pipeline from the government to help reduce this cost in the name of building out the infrastructure to enable electricity access? Hello? Pak Roberto?
Sorry?
Oh yeah, so I think I want to get a bit deeper into Amelia's second question. I think her emphasis was more on the cost side of it. What might be IBM's, what might be Schneider or government policies available, or maybe in the pipeline that could help reduce the cost to build these high-tech electricity infrastructure?
Okay, I didn't respond because I listened IBM, sorry. So as I said, all in all, it's not the technology cost, but the full business case, right? So you need to include in the equation, what are you looking for? If you are looking for a positive contribution toward the planet, if you are looking for operational savings, etc., etc. So that is why every customer that works with us, we set up first a consultancy program in which we can framework to where the company is going. As soon as we determine this, you have the wider picture. With the wider picture, the investment is one part, and believe me, all the companies in Indonesia has invested a strong quantity of money, right? A strong quantity of money. So the problem is not the investment. The problem is not the cost of the technology that, as I said, it will decrease and decrease and decrease. The problem is to have a clear roadmap toward the full digitization, which is not only electricity, industry 4.0, is the full digitization of the company, the management of the company with a strong backbone to control virtually the company as such. So all in all, the government will play a role, an important role in introduce the backbone, right? So there are big lines in which the government need to play to secure every single island, every single place can be reached by the network, either through renewable energy or with the normal energy. But at the end, we need to have all in all in an interconnected country. And on top of that, for sure, we have plenty of solutions that, despite of the cost of the technology, at the end, it saves money, right? It's pricey, but it's like this, right? Because you sometimes don't put on the equation the losses when you have a shutdown of the plant. When you have a shutdown of the plant, you lose a lot of money, right? And it happens everywhere, as well as when you face low power quality. you lost a lot of product during the production. So at the end, when you incorporate all this input in your company equation, you will realize that the best way to move forward is to incorporate new technologies to make a cleaner future while you are more efficient, and by reducing other type of wasted, you can reach what are your expectations in terms of company.
Great, thank you, Roberto. Amelia, I hope that answers your question. I apologize again for saying the wrong company's name. This time it is for IBM Indonesia. For Pak Tan, we have a question from Pak Denny Susanto. It's Indonesian, but I'm going to roughly translate it to, in relation to the data center market in Indonesia, IBM is also big in the cloud space. Does government regulations that require in relation to storing data overseas limit or inhibit the development of data centers in Indonesia?
Thank you, Pak Denny and Pak Norman, for the question. I think on the data center regulation, government has been released back in 2019 on GR number 71, 2019, as a replacement for the GR number 82, 2012, right? So basically on the GR 71, 2019, it's governed that all the public ESP need to be reside in Indonesia. So for the public entity, but for the private entity, they have a choice. Either they can put it in Indonesia or they can put outside Indonesia, right? So this is basically the regulation mentioned. With that, I think still have some regulation that those entities need to put the data center in Indonesia. So I think the question is either this will limit the growth in the data center. Actually, it's not. In fact, many of public cloud players start to invest in Indonesia. You name it now. Google has been placed the data center in Indonesia, and more to come, right? So I think people will have more investment, especially for the data center, and we can see number of players, right? Either in telecom and the rest is start to building not only a tier 2 or tier 3, but it's a highest level, which is a tier 4 data center that put in Indonesia, right? So I think this addressed the question. But I think the most important is not the location of the data center, but the technology of the data center that allow us to move from one data center to the other data center. So by using that technology, we can avoid for the vendor locking. We can have a more flexibility. We have more option in the future once we want to embark. Let's say today I go to the public cloud because of the efficiency, but because of certain regulation, we need to bring it back to private. Then because we already deploy the technology since beginning, we have the luxuries to bring it rather than get a vendor locking. I think that's the comment, Pak Norman. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Pak. I want to follow up on Danny's question in relation to data in general. Many countries are now becoming more and more aware and issuing regulations in relation to data privacy. We have the EU with the GDPR. China a few days ago just passed a new data law. I'm perhaps curious for IBM itself, what is the policy when it comes to how best to protect users' data?
Yeah, so that's also the good part, which is on the GR 71 2019 is also governed for the personal data protection, not only for the data center. The regulation also governed for the personal data protection. I think we need to be clear on how we collect the data, on how we process, store, revise, display, and the end is a delete and removal, right? So I think there's a more inquiry coming. In fact, I think for the last 2 years during this COVID, I think we have a lot of demand now is coming talking about the data governance. So how once we get the data, we can really govern the data and provide in the right manners to the end user. Yeah. So I think again, the regulation has been coming. I think many of the entities start to comply with that regulation now. Yeah.
Thank you, Pak Tan. Moving on to Bu Vivi, also some questions for you, Ibu. Firstly, we have In the case of Indonesia, what is the most realistic path to boost job participation? Should, for instance, high school graduates take digital-related vocational schools? Which industries are most likely to absorb them?
Thank you, Norman, for the interesting question. I think, as I mentioned in my presentation, digital transformation is actually not one-size-fits-all transformation where everyone needs to go into the same directions. With the ability to learn everything, with also the risings of the no-code platform, it's not only just those who have the interest or patience on data science that can benefit from this digital platform. I think the important ones is actually really having this digital literacy and really understanding what they need, and even like really looking at like what are the specific informations, courses, skills that they need, where they are and where they would like to do. And I believe that all kind of platforms, MOOC, or even like within Indonesia, you can learn almost anything. And of course, really understanding data savvy becomes a basic needs. But I don't think it means that everyone needs to really have like all the ability to do coding in Pythons or having deep learning capabilities. There are ways to learn, and like I'm really intrigued with the no-code trend currently, which this is giving like ability to lift all the boats, not just like for those who are already highly educated or have tendencies of like learning more about mathematics or coding.
Thank you, Bu. Another question from Enda Arifin. Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, from Enda Arifin, yes. This is for Bu Vivi as well. What do you think about this idea? The government using TV channels, TVRI, RRI, and media social platforms to spread spread educational material as a means of addressing the infrastructure gap in education, especially throughout the pandemic. How effective would this approach be?
It could be one of like the main intervention, but my sense that the role shouldn't be just only government. You could actually open up to everyone. Currently, we have of course like government in their efforts of like both in terms of Merdeka Belajar and also Prakerja initiative needs to be appreciated. Like Prakerja program is a step to provide access to training for millions of people wherever they are, including in Papua. But if we only rely on government in spreading out the news, the skills, it will not be optimal. The issues currently, my sense is like more like ensuring everyone knowing where is it there. The digital literacies should be focusing on the 4 types of constraint, not really knowing what they need to learn, not really have the motivations of learning, and also not having the capability, including this like access to internet. The other thing is like more making sure that it's tailored to the needs, not only just like for the upper class, but also everyone. For example, the needs of SMEs, the needs of like someone who have warung or doing. Currently, like, I think it gives a lot of promises. I'm really excited with COVID. It's actually, you see a lot of like online business flourishing, including through WhatsApp, through glides, through making like even like a lot of people, for example, like one of the things that I'm really excited is like a lot of people are doing social capital, trying to help each other, including like one of like the interventions in Jogja, for example, Sonjo, by making glides applications for Pasar Sonjo, which is like providing small media SMEs, which is possibly before have not been doing any much of like online businesses, starting making it easy because it does not really require much steps beside of making Google Sheets, for example.
Okay, thank you, Bu. Very insightful. Another question for you from Andi Pamungkas, addressed to Bu Vivi, talks about digitalizing in Indonesia is particularly difficult for around 3 million general trade and conventional trade industries. These are like warung, gerombong, semi-trailer, etc., etc. The question is, how best to include these industries, small-scale trade, retail, in the digital economy, or uses the word in digital life. Yep. What do you think, Ibu?
This is a very interesting question. Like, indeed, digital transformation strategy should focus on lifting all the boats, including like these 3 million that Andy mentions. And there are a lot of like promises also that that digital can actually help them from during the whole life cycles of operating their business, on getting the business ideas, what to sell. Should it be pisang goreng, or should it be martabak, or should it be others? There are ways to really learn from looking at like what are the most important possible products or services that they can provide. But it's not only that, it's like social media, marketing through social media. They could learn how to market through WhatsApp business, through Instagram, through Twitter. Not only that, like management, like bookkeeping, it's becoming like more and more easy. The most important, as I mentioned earlier, is digital literacy should be a basic needs for everyone. Not only those who have higher education, but everyone knows how easy and how it can be beneficial for them. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the trend of no code, low code will make it possible not only those who have higher capabilities of like programming and coding can actually use, everyone can be makers. Like even like making web application or webs becoming less and less difficult for everyone to do. But of course, in it means that there is a need for government to really thinking through digital transformations along the life cycles for everyone, including for those that Andy mentions, the 3 million gerobak, warung, making it easier for them to reach their customer, understanding better, making it easier for them to do a bookkeeping, to really know whether like where they are, to, or even like to change their directions if needed. I think it's providing chances for everyone, but however, there are a lot of challenges, including government needs to make sure that those are becoming one of the priorities also.
Thank you, Ibu. I hope that answers the question to Pak Andi, was it? Yes. Now going on to Pak Arief, we have a question also for you, Pak. It's in Indonesian. I'm going to roughly translate it to, this is from Rosiana Indah Purnomo. She says she has worked with many people who face difficulty with connectivity, especially outside Java. What concrete plans can we expect from the regulatory side, from the government, that would help equalize internet access, especially perhaps regulations that would help companies equalize internet access?
Yes, this is very interesting question, because there is some mechanic in the sector, telco sectors, when we are talking about the location that from the business perspective is viable, but for the other location that not the business is viable. So that's why right now, actually, the government in the perspective of the regulatory, there is use of fund. Use of fund is very useful to cover the area that already mentioned by Pak Menteri, for the out of sight of Java, that maybe in the perspective of the business is still not possible, because just for example, the return of investment still not reach for, so that's why there is a USO fund. The USO fund actually already provided by operator. So if there is a net income, there is a portion, a small portion of net income that's separate and also managed by Bhakti. Right now, Bhakti is a part of the Ministry of Information and Communication. So this is the mechanic that actually to guarantee if there is a location that from operator side, this is not possible for the business perspective, but still there is a fund investment that we can put in this location. So this is a mechanic and regulatory that already running right now so far.
Okay. If I go into a bit more detail, what are the parameters, or like what are the specific places or regions that this USO fund is aimed at building? Is it perhaps Papua, or is it they look at villages on the outskirts?
Yeah, actually there is some criteria that we can see. For example, the number of population, and also the number of the users, for example, and also the usage per month, for example. So there is some very technical calculation that actually this is very familiar for the in the telco sectors. However, again, actually right now the governments already have the priority, not only for the task in the government side, but this is also the duty of all the operator. So that's why the 12,000 villages right now already have an initiative and program, which part that belongs to the Bhakti as a part of the government, and which part that's the duty of the operators. So I think this is the thing that Pak Menteri said. This initiative accelerate 10 years accelerated, because this is how actually governments and the operators have this same understanding to cover all the villages in Indonesia.
Okay, thank you, Pak. This question is from me personally. I'm curious to see, Indosat still offers 3G at this moment, mostly for the more remote areas. Correct me if I'm wrong. How will Indosat, what is Indosat's strategy to balance between having 3G and expanding 4G and also introducing 5G?
I think this is almost question by people that have interesting in the telco sectors. Right now, actually, even this is from the government directions. So the new BTS, it will be the 4G, no matter this is in city and villages, because the service is the same. Everyone using the Zoom, using learning management system, that they are using need videos and etc. So that's why 4G is the foundation. So what about the 2G and 3G? Yes, right now we have a plan to phase out this technology, because the technology is already outdated. So that's why we have a plan, stage by stage, in each cities. Hopefully, we have to accelerate also to dismantling the 2G and 3G technology. And afterwards, we are just only the 4G as the backbone. And after that, we are right now preparing in some location, 7 cities from Indosat side, to deploy the 5G. This is the roadmap if we are talking about the cellular technology itself.
Okay, great. Thank you, Pak. There's still more questions for all the speakers. I'm gonna go with this one from Juan Camilo Roldan. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name. This goes to Pa Roberto in relation to your presentation. How does connectivity go hand in hand with sustainability, not only in terms of the environment, but also in terms of study programs such as technology management? And then the question is, what is the budget in this connectivity project?
You mean in the connectivity project in terms of digitalization or what? I couldn't get the point.
I'm not too sure too, honestly, but Juan, if you are there, could you elaborate which budget exactly? But perhaps, Roberto, the first question first is, how to balance between connectivity and sustainability? The way I understand this is between trying to build out infrastructure. It's also a question of how to make that development sustainable, how we can finance it and how we can make sure it's inclusive. How do you balance that?
So the way in which we see the future is based on connectivity, right? So there is no way to move forward with the performance that we had during the last 10 years because the challenge ahead will need a new level of efficiency. And this new level of efficiency is only reached by connectivity, digitalization, and the full monitoring of every single action that we do. But it's not only this. The first stage is, okay, we need to be, to connect the dots, we need to have everything under monitoring system. But later, we don't have the capabilities to process this quantity of data. So later is more relevant, the third layer that we need to include, which is the analytics, right? So the first layer is to secure that the backbone is performance enough and fully connectable. We need to secure a control system on top of it. And later we need to build the analytic layer. So there, when you reach that, you really untap your potential, you really untap your efficiency ahead. So I would not say that it's one or the other. One is consequence of the other. If you want to reach the future generation of the efficiency that we need to perform, because if not, we will be out of the market. The companies that will not embrace this level of efficiency will be out of the market for several reasons. So connectivity and digitalization is a must. It's not a question mark, right?
Right. Thank you, Pak Roberto. This is also another question from me. There are two very important regulations expected to come out this year in relation to green power generation, which, as you mentioned, is one of the important aspects of being able to create this energy transition. These two regulations are the Undang-Undang EPT, the Renewable Energy Law, and a regulation on feed-in tariffs. What is Schneider's hope or expectation on these regulations? How might it help promote renewable energy development?
First, we celebrate the regulation as such, right? Because it introduced the topic in a more structured way. Later, we need to discuss together what is the way of better structure this regulation. But we all need to celebrate this because without regulation, we are nowhere, right? So we need to have regulation for renewable energy. We need to have regulation for smart metering. We need to have regulation for prosumers, that are the customer that buy energy, but also can sell the energy that they generate, but they don't use. So all in all, we celebrate this new step toward the future that the government is doing. We will participate as much as possible with our contribution because we are in more than 140 countries, and in most of them, this revolution is happening, right? So we can help with benchmark, we can help with information, we can help with lesson learned, right? What was good, what was not so good. So this is our contribution. Our expected contribution is to bring information, to bring technology, to bring visioning, to bring benchmark, to allow the local decision makers and the local lawmakers to make the best of these new regulations.
Thank you, Pa. So we just got back from Yuan about that question about the budget. So it's the budget. So what is the budget to establish connectivity, whether that is through 4G or 5G in the regions? This is for Pa Roberto.
Maybe 4G and 5G budget maybe is better for telecom. I don't know. Maybe 4G and 5G budget is a little bit out of our scope, right?
Fair enough, fair enough. So maybe Pa Arief, maybe you can answer this one. What is Indosat's budget to establish 4G and 5G in the regions?
Yes, actually, we have a bucket of the budget because, first about the coverage. It's mean the extension of the coverage need a budget. Mostly, this is the additional BTS is the core of this budget itself. The investment is mainly in the BTS rollout. However, this is not only for the extension of the coverage, but for example, in a very dense population, this is also another additional budget to make densifying the traffic itself. So this is another thing that we have to enhance the capacity and the capability this infrastructure to bring all the offering traffic that used by the users. So mainly the investment is actually depend on this situation, the coverage and also the enhancement of the capacity and the capability. And the rest of the investment actually, this is a part of the core network. This is about the data centers, the IoT platform, also the gateway. So this is another thing that we have to prepare how actually the investment in the telco looks like. So this is the structure for the high level when we are talking the investment in the telco.
Great. Thank you, Pa. Moving on again to Pak Tam, we have a follow-up question from Denny about data centers. He writes, Government Regulation number 71/2019 says that private domain electronic system operator may process and or store electronic system and data overseas. And his question is, what if all this data is by regulation forced to be stored within Indonesian territory? Will it increase data center? Will it increase the data center market and number of players in Indonesia, or will it be on the contrary, Indonesia will lose potential current data center businesses?
Thank you, Pak Denny, for the follow-up questions. I think earlier in 82, 2012, the regulation has been imposed that all the data need to be reside in Indonesia. So in 2012, actually, all the data need to be reside in Indonesia. But there's a revision in 2019 that give a liberty for the private ESP can manage, process, or store the electronic data either inside or outside Indonesia. So seems like 2019 give us some chance for people to put the data outside Indonesia. But please be aware, although they can put the data outside Indonesia, they still need to be supervised by the respective ministry or association. So like OJK or central bank, if they are playing in a financial institution, for example, right? So with that, actually, there's some rules and procedure that they need to follow if they want to put the data center outside Indonesia. So maybe I see a little bit on the consequence, right? After Singapore, majority the target for the public cloud open the new data center is Indonesia. And we can see it now, right? Number of global cloud provider is putting their data center in Indonesia. So this will be more relevant or more challenging compared to the regulation itself. Because once the global player start to put the data center in Indonesia, they set a new standard. The standard is higher than before. So once the standard is higher than before, for example, I mentioned they will put the tier 4 data center. This will become a strong competition between the global player and the local data center player. This, if the local data center player didn't carefully upgrade their system or the environment, they may be lost the battle with the global data center player. I think this will be more worried, right, rather than the regulation. It's more that how the local data center player can up to speed, upgrade their speed, and then the environment to be similar with a global data center.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Thank you, Pak Tan. On that note, the cloud market in Indonesia is growing, and so is competition. This overlaps a bit with your presentation just now, but perhaps could you go into a bit more detail about what is IBM's strategy to try and capture the domestic cloud market in Indonesia? Which are the industries of focus? What offers might be there? What are the product differentiations? What is the strategy?
Yeah, so if you see the IT market in Indonesia, there's a 4 big player or industry that really consume a lot of the IT, right? One definitely is a telco. So telco is since this COVID-19, the first time telco IT industry is higher than the banking. So the second one is a banking. Previously, banking is number 1, but now telco is the highest, right? First, telco. Second is banking. Third is government. The last is manufacturing. These are 4 key areas that consume a lot of IT. Although there's 2 key industries growing very fast with a small baseline, but growing very fast, which is number 1 is e-commerce. Second one is a payment gateway system. Right? These 2 also we notice is very significant growth, right? So back to the question is how the cloud in local we can really bring a value and win the competition. Again, once the people embark on the, we call it IaaS layer, infrastructure as services, they are thinking about either they put it in public or private or hybrid, they will go to the next layer, the platform as a services. So this is a battle that I think is more interesting because we'll dictate and define the market and the ecosystem. So I think for IBM itself, we are playing significant focus on this area compared to the IaaS layer. Yeah.
Thank you, Pak, for a very succinct answer. Perhaps one last question, and this goes to Ibu Vivi. You mentioned a bit about tech hubs, and I was wondering, we're seeing a lot of tech hubs in Indonesia emerging the past few years. We have the Nongsa Digital Park, we have BSD has their own, and one that grabbed a lot of media attention recently is Bukit Algoritma, all of which are private entities. How do you see the role of these privately owned so-called tech hubs in improving human resource and developing human resource capacity digitally in Indonesia?
I think it is a very good trend, yeah, because like what we need, as I mentioned earlier, even in Africa, we have a lot of hubs of like tech hubs like this. Bukit Algoritma is a good initiative. What we need more than just one, and like I think like we have here in IBM and others, they should actually push for how to ensure like this transformation of like upscaling, rescaling in certain type of skills or ability to compete with others needs to be not only through these tech hubs, but also ensuring that other, for example, SME and others will have ability. My sense is the challenge of these tech hubs is inducing that we have the capacities to do it better. And this is like in relations to what I said earlier in terms of educational transformations. Tech hubs only without digital literacy will not really delivering the promise that digital transformations can lift all the boats. But we do need more on that. Like this is like a good initiative, but we need more than just one tech hubs.
Thank you very much, Vivi, also for that very succinct answer. Ladies and gentlemen, we are almost nearing the end of this webinar for today. So I would like each speaker to perhaps prepare some closing remarks. We still have 50 minutes on the clock. Let's say each speaker gets roughly 5 minutes, and use it as an opportunity to sort of summarize what are the gist of your respective presentations and ideas. I think I'm going to go with the same order as when we started this presentation. We could start with Pak Roberto. Closing remarks, Pak?
Yes, thank you. So first of all, thank you for this meaningful conversation. I really appreciate all the time here and all the question and the participation. And thank you also to the rest of the speakers, because also I learned a lot here. Thank you to all of you. So all in all, I think that now we can talk together about Industry 4.0, which is the conversion of digital and electricity at high scale, powered by software and new technologies to untap the efficiency that we need ahead, right? So there is no way to keep going with the fossil fuels. There is no way to keep going with the updated network and no connectivity, etc., etc. So the future is clear. There are plenty of ways to make it happen. We collectively, as a human beings, we need to reach the net zero carbon emission by 2030 if we want to achieve our goal and to give to our kids and the kids of our kids a planet where they can live with, right? So all in all, I think that we have a tremendous challenge ahead. While we need to improve drastically our performance, we need to keep growing. We need more data center. I agree with Dan that this will grow drastically in Indonesia, and this is more consumption, right? So we need to have more data center, but better data center, best-in-class data center with the cost-efficient best-in-class equations. And like data centers, in every single place, we need to play in that way. We need to be conscious about we have only one planet, and we need to work together to make it happen for a future with zero waste and zero carbon emission. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Roberto. Pak Tan, please, your closing remarks.
Yeah, thanks, Pak Novan. Maybe during this COVID-19, we can see that digital transformation become the leading edge for all or many of the company to do the competition and win the competition. And IT become the heart of the digital transformation. But again, IT is not only about the technology. We also need to fix about the people, process, and lastly the technology. These three is playing a very critical part to really win the competition. And with building this digital transformation allow us not only from outside in, from market to understand, but also from inside out. We have the ability to do the innovation by ourselves and then really address what is market required. I think that's from me. Yeah, Pak Norman.
Terima kasih. Thank you, Pak Tan. Bu Vivi, silakan closing remarks.
Yep. So the main remarks is digital transformations give promises, but not without additional challenge. One of the main challenge is ensuring that it will not create winner-takes-all phenomena. It lifting all the boats. It means the target groups will be all over Indonesia, including that Andy mentioned earlier in his questions, the warung, the SMEs, women, men, all of education. Currently, the platform and technology is very much education bias, urban bias. Tackling those biases are important. There are several things that challenge that needs to be addressed, including the challenge of ensuring comprehensive approach. Not only focusing on high tech, high skill, but also ensuring digital literacy is and everyone have the access to digital literacy. Not only ensuring on reforming universities, but also ensuring even like nurturing early childhood development to ensure that like the capacity to adapt, the capacity to be the next makers, the next digital talents are starting since kindergarten, the golden years. And again, the target group should be all and also comprehensive approach. That's like, it is not an utopia, but we need to address those challenges if we want to make sure that Indonesia can reap the benefit, the digital dividends that can offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Vivi. And that brings us to Pak Arief. Bapak, your closing remarks?
Yes, I think there is a two keyword. First, the opportunity. Despite we are facing a lot of challenges, COVID-19 and etc. But we believe there is a big and huge opportunity that we can moving forward together. The second keyword is about the collaboration. We cannot solve by ourselves. So that's why the collaboration is the keyword. How actually we can set up the new ecosystem that inclusive for everyone, for the moving forward and have the bright future. So this is from my end.
Thank you, Pak Arief. Very succinct. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up for today's webinar. Thank you very much to all the speakers today, Pak Roberto, Bu Vivi, Pak Tan, Pak Arief, for your time and your insights, and to the audience for your participation in today's webinar. Once again, thank you very much. Have a great day, stay safe, and stay well. See you in the next webinar. Cheers.
See you.
See you. Thank you.
See you. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Terima kasih semuanya. Pak Arief,
Sama-sama. Makasih,
Jaga.
Jiref.
jaga kesehatan, Pak.
Sama, Mas.
Oh ya udah, oke. Thank you, Mas.
Ya, terima kasih semuanya dari tim Indosat, Schneider,